and welcome to the Amherst County Board of Supervisors meeting. This is the call to order. Let the record reflect it is August 16th, 2022, and the time is 7 p.m. Our first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Board, are there any additions or deletions that need to be made to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to remove item A from the consent agenda and be able to discuss that, please.
All right. Any other changes that need to be made?
Mr. Chairman, I ask that we put a section on here to speak to the Mill Creek Lake bike trail that's being looked at.
All right, we'll put that under, we'll make that item B under old business.
Okay.
Mill Creek Trail. All right, and I believe, are there any others? I know that there was some discussion that we had is it on here? An interview?
No, we're gonna keep it as an agenda item, and then we'll speak to that when the person gets here.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So we have two changes. We're gonna, under the consent agenda, we're gonna pull out the financial policy A under Public Works and talk about that as a separate issue. And we'll add item B, Mill Creek Trail, under old business as item B. Anything else? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So move with noted changes, Mr. Chairman.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next we'll have the invocation and pledge of allegiance, and I ask Mr. Tom Martin to lead us.
Let's pray. Our Father and our God, Lord, we come before you today as your humble servants. Lord, we ask you to give this board wisdom, Lord, as we conduct the business of the county. Father, we thank you for our citizens. Father, we just ask for civil discussion this evening, Lord, as we try and move this county forward. Father, we pray a special blessing on all of the county employees, and we ask these things in your name. Amen. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. All right, next we have citizen comments. I have a list of citizen comments. The first is Mr. Pat Malchel.
My comments are related to the bike trail, so if you want to move me to that, that's fine.
Ma'am, if you could come up. We're not having an actual public hearing on the bike trail. We're going to discuss it as a board. If you have comments you would like to make about the bike trail, I'd ask that you make them now.
Okay.
And just state your district of residence, if you don't mind. And if you don't know that, you can state your address.
2032 Turkey Mountain Road. Pat Melko. I just want to know where we are on things now. There's so many rumors flying around. My main concern is that we are not condemning private property for this trail.
Well, I can answer that. I don't think anyone on this board wants to condemn, or we will be condemning any private property for a recreational trail.
Okay. I'd rather have a I will not and I would never condemn. That was like very, very good political statement, but that really gives no reassurance to any of us.
Anyway, that's my statement.
Is there anybody else that would like to comment from the board?
We're not going through this on the board here. We're going to discuss this, and we'll have an open discussion here in public, and we'll lay it all out and our thoughts at that point in time.
Is the survey done?
Yes. Yes, it's done.
Does the survey allow for the bike?
Ma'am, we're not going to answer questions here tonight. Right now, we're going to discuss this in a few minutes. So if you have questions you would like us to answer, they can be a FOIA. You can submit them to Mr. Rogers, and we will get you those answers.
Okay. Well, that's the end of my discussion then.
Thank you. All right, next, Mr. Tim Ware.
My name is Tim Ware. I live at 405 Cherry Hill Road, Amherst, Virginia. First of all, I'd like to compliment the board on their work with Mill Creek, the swimming area. It's been a huge success. My wife and daughter went up there over the weekend. 50 people, no loud music, no real screaming, no disordinance. There was people on paddle boards. They enjoyed the beach, so way to go on that. And then I would like to say that I'm in favor for the trail around the creek, Mill Creek. I've been around mountain biking a lot. These trails are very low impact. People who ride bikes and who hike are not into littering, and they take care of the trails, and they are pretty nature-friendly people. So, and also I know some of the people have land concerns, and I'm not into that neither, but I think the trail itself, the idea of a trail system is a great idea. This county needs more stuff like that. I've been on economic development boards when the first time they came around, the first time I was in business, and everybody sat around in a room. We had this big chat about, what's the great about Amherst, and everybody said our mountains and our lakes, and we're not utilizing these areas at all. This is a huge resource at a back door that we're not using. You have the AT trail that comes through our county. We have plenty of national forests. We have the 3 lakes. I'm glad to see they're getting used. Like to say the public beach is working out, but I think we also need to tap into more usage of the lakes and in all areas. And, I've had this conversation. People don't believe me, but last weekend I was in Fayetteville, North Carolina, just on the side of the big bridge that they cross, where everybody bungees off of. And, a small town like Amherst, it's booming. I mean, it's still got a local feel. The restaurants are full. Everybody knows in this county, a restaurant comes in here and everybody wants somewhere to eat. Everybody's tired of paying property taxes. If the restaurant comes in this town, there's not enough people to keep another restaurant going. So in 6 months, one restaurant will come in and another one will go out. One's coming in, one's going out of business. And I hear people, complain about that. I sat here at the back door of the Commission Revenue's office. Everybody complains about the property taxes and going to pay. Well, we want the fire department to come. We want the ambulance to come. We want the sheriff's department. Somehow this county has to figure out how to pay for this. And our biggest resource is our untapped natural beauty that we have that nobody's, the beach, we're working on it, but it's like an area that's everybody's afraid to touch. And I don't know, there's so many. Pisgah, North Carolina. We just spent 2 weeks in Utah. These little ghost towns in Utah have trails in them, and people come all over and, spend time hiking and biking, and it's, it makes them some money. And I think that's the key thing we seem to be missing on this. And like I say, I'm going back, repeating myself, I'm not in it and taking someone's land, but I think if the county owns the land, I think we should utilize it or definitely promote. And, one of my biggest gripes about about not using our natural resources, because, heck, we got a lot of industrial parks, but we don't have any industrial. It's like we've been tooting that horn for so many years. I'm 52 years old. I've lived here my whole life.
Mr. Ware, we've reached 3 minutes. If you could sum up your comments, and so we can move on.
Yeah. That being said, I would just say that it's an untapped resource that we need to look further into, the trails, the hiking, and utilizing that whole mountainside and those ponds. It is a public lake. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Jonathan Schoening. I'm saying that right? Yes. If you could just state your area of residence for us, please.
It's 253 Rosecliff Court. Just to kind of reiterate what Tim had said, I'm here to support the trail around Mill Creek. I've got a pretty vested interest in the county. We have a business, and I've got 3 small boys, my oldest of which is here today, and he wanted to come because he wanted to see trails, and we go to the rail trail all the time, but to have something really close would be super nice. And like I said, anything I can do to help or working on it. Trails don't cost a lot of money. They just take time, but I think most people seem to really always kind of get in and work, and I think people really enjoy having outdoor resources that are close to home. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Ruth Warner.
Thank you very much. One, I want to thank all of you who have given me time. I've called you, written letters. I'm in District 2. And everyone has been so respectful and objective and informative. There's only been one of you that has been very disrespectful and difficult to hear what I'm trying to say. And I appreciate this forum as well, and even though I would differ on some things, it's just, this is so important, and I appreciate it. I live on the lake, and I've lived in Amherst County for 40 years, and raised my family here, and I moved here for the county. I moved here in the area that I am, Gidsville area, and then Mill Creek for the privacy, the beauty, and so forth. So I'm in agreement with that. The lake is beautiful, but placing trails, which you're doing an impact study, you're doing a survey, you're researching it, is so different around that lake than, of course, Piney River and others. And I hope you get more trails. And I've been Utah and Denver, Colorado, and hiked up the mountains, and it's so beautiful, and I'm in agreement. But this lake is in compromise, being so close. And plus, you've done the survey, you have requested 3 people to walk on their property, and they have said no. I also have a voice with the others. We've done letters, calling, I've called you guys, I've written you, and to plead, do not destroy the lake. And it will impose the people who live there, like your backyard, it will affect our safety. It will affect our privacy. And I got to thinking exactly what you said, Claudia, and it's true. Like, well, you brought up against the county. Well, I did know that. It's the lake. And when you see someone out there fishing and you see that, it is beautiful. It's serene. But a trail up around through or near your property, it's much different. You already know I've been robbed last year. You already know the destruction to my property, and I will, again, get you more proof of that. But you also know you can just call the sheriff's office and get that report yourself. But the other thing I found interesting in this learning scope is I'm pleading, let's have trails, let's have parks, but be considerate of all the factors. And I think that's a part of your research. And I hope my voice matters. But out of the 30 families, I was really shocked that so many are afraid of you. They don't want to come up here. They don't want to talk. They don't want to call you. Some have called because I sent out the 30 letters like 4 times, so I believe they have reached out to you. And they're afraid of your power. They're afraid you'll do them harm. One person said that we might get you so mad that you're going to put a fence all the way around it. I said, they're not going to do that. And but I hear what he wants, and I want you to have that. But in the compromise of the lake and all that's around it and the animals, and I go to Mill Creek on the other side as well, and I see something a little different, and I go regularly, and so I am concerned for that.
Ms. Warner,
Yes.
3 minutes. Do you mind wrapping your comments up for us?
Yes, sir. But again, I want to thank you, and I hope we can spend that $350,000. I hope we can honor the requests of the trail for these bikers. Give them 5 acres and let them be only bikers, and really consider the lives and the families around it. And I'm glad you're a good citizen, but I've lived on Mill Creek Lake, and not everyone's a good citizen. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Daniel Warner.
Daniel Warner, District 2. Yeah, I feel the same heartthrob as everybody. It's kind of tough because we're all a family. This is a family. We all care about Amherst County. I mean, we wouldn't be here if we didn't. And this isn't Lynchburg, and we don't have people with sidewalks running right through our yard or alleyways. I mean, it changes the chemistry. But I was praying about it too, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, we're a family, so everyone wants to appreciate the beauty, and no one should just say, I get a bigger piece of the pie than you do. I recognize that. So what is a mutual win for all parties involved? And it is tough. I mean, sometimes some people are going to get the shorter stick. But I was thinking about it. One thing we have not focused on. So granted, as humans, we all want to appreciate this. I'll give anybody that. Money as a Native American blood running in my veins, I understand that. No one really owns anything. We're just trying to learn how to integrate and work with each other on a shared natural resource that's beautiful. But one thing I have, again, it's come back to as a biologist, as a VMI grad, that's my heartbeat with this emphasis is there are certain things about natural resources, and I've said this, and I'll say it again till the day I die, that sometimes Ralph Waldo Emerson put in perspective, once it's gone, it's gone. So yes, we have this incredible natural resource. How are we going to manage it? That's our responsibility at the highest apex level. And I am concerned, to echo on a negative, which I hate to say this, I really do, I'd rather just stay positive. I have to reverberate what my mom said, and that is not all humans, even the best of us well-intended, are going to use this natural resource in the most amiable way. Criminal behavior will uptick. It's a fact. It's a sad fact. But there's lack of accountability, and we as the property owners around this lake are concerned, and I think that's valid. We're going to be responsible, and I say this soberly, we're going to be responsible to be more vigilant. And I'm going to have to, as a brother, be more on the upside, looking out for my mom and sisters who live there more permanently. That is my biggest concern, and that is an echo chamber for the other 30 families and property owners around the lake. Its shenanigans are going to uptick. It's just a fact. So what's the plan in place to mitigate and manage that? I've not heard that. And then lastly, in conclusion, the animals. I'm not saying that people haven't done due diligence on the impact study, but as a biologist, I am concerned there are species there that will be negatively impacted. It's called disturbance, and it affects how animals interact because they want to have privacy to a certain extent, just like us. So I'm going to conclude with that and just say I am concerned for those two factors, the criminal behavior and the disturbance to the natural wildlife, which we all want to see flourish there. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak under citizen comments? If you could, just state your name and address for the record, or district.
Victoria Warner, District 2. So as many of you know, I love the peace, the quiet, the serenity of where we live, and I'm sure you all would too if you lived, around the lake. I'm not sure where each of you live. And I wanted to ask this question. I know you don't have to answer it, but I wanted to ask it anyway. If the idea of developing a trail around the entirety of the lake has dissipated, what other developments are you thinking and where? Thank you.
All right, anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing one, we'll go ahead and close citizen comments, and we'll move on to our public hearings. Mr. Bryant, I guess you'll be leading us through the next 4 items.
Yes, sir. The first item is an ordinance that you saw at your last meeting. It includes minimum lot standards and plating requirements for stormwater facilities, utilities, and cemetery lots. The purpose of these regulations is to offer more flexibility for future developers, citizens, and utility companies. This reduces the standards of subdivision plating requirements, which will allow the creation of these stormwater facilities, utility lots, and cemetery lots to go below the minimum lot area and lot width for the zoning district which they're situated. I gave you an example at the last meeting of how Firefly would like to submit put a facility in. Our minimum lot size requires a certain size. This will allow them to reduce that for these 3 different types of uses. The recommended motion is that you adopt ordinance 2022-006. Any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak regarding ordinance 2022-0006, please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, we will go ahead and close the public hearing. What's your pleasure, board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board adopt ordinance number 2022-0006.
All right, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, Mr. Bryant?
Okay, the next regulation rolls in some of the changes that you just made into each of the respective zoning districts. Mr. Martin, we also rolled into the changes that you requested as a first reading. That included a change in the definition for architectural elevation to add building materials and color. That was included into the definition, so I hope we were able to honor what you were looking for. So in effect, we are requiring architectural elevation drawings to be provided for any new structural building in the V1 Village District. This gives both county staff, elected officials, and citizens the ability to better understand the appearance of the development being proposed. And again, it rolls in the changes that you just made with stormwater facilities and the other facilities as permitted uses in the respective districts. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and open public hearing 2022-0009. Is anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Board, go ahead, Mr. Martin.
I move that the board adopt ordinance number 2022-0009.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next ordinance modification essentially changes campgrounds which are permitted uses in the agricultural district. Keep in mind that generally and approximately 2/3 of the county is zoned agriculture. We're asking you to remove them as a permitted use and require them to be a special exception. At the last meeting, Mr. Martin, you asked that we called campgrounds. We did that. There are two. We called both Isaac Walton and the KOA on Route 130. Isaac Walton is zoned R2, general residential, so this change shouldn't materially affect them. It, however, could affect the KOA more on Route 130, that is zoned agriculture. Spoke to the owner, and he said that they would like to have plans to expand in the future. So in essence, what this ordinance would require is, because they have a permitted use there, they could expand up to 25% by right. After that, they would be required to go through the special exception process. They don't have a lot of room for expansion, but the owner said that they did have plans where they would like to expand in the future. From a staff perspective, we feel like this change still is a positive move in the right direction and outweighs that one potential negative, because we're concerned about campgrounds being able to be a permitted use in an agricultural district. We think they should be vetted out because of the intensity of traffic and noise that a permitted campground could bring. I did talk to the owner. I don't see him tonight. He may be here. We talked about it. And again, the owner of the KOA still could expand up to 25% by right. And then after that would require a special exception. So it's still not a no with this change. It's just would require a level of review by both the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors.
Any questions? All right, we will go ahead and open the public hearing regarding the campgrounds. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak? We will go ahead and close the public hearings. Board, are there any discussions, any issues? I think Mr. Bryant laid it out pretty clearly, and it makes sense to me. With that being said, I'll go ahead and make the motion. We approve ordinance 2022-0010. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next we have a special exception for Rowan Holdings LLC.
Hopefully this is very familiar to you. When you first saw this was a rezoning request. You've seen now two rezoning requests from Rowan Holdings. One was for the 9.9 acres that included this apartment complex. The second was for the 170 acres. Now that it's zoned MUT&D, which is our mixed-use traditional neighborhood development ordinance, there are certain use categories that do require further approval. This is one of them. And apartment buildings in the future will also be one of them because they have more that they've proposed. So they are seeking a special exception request from you for these two apartment buildings. You may recall there's 54 units in each building, totaling 108 apartment units. This property does come with 6 different proffers. Those proffers run with the land and will remain with the land. So they are still part of and in your packet for your review. We had two conditions that were recommended, and it was, again, just tying the master plan back to that original 5/12/22 date, similar to what we did with the proffers, and then a general sweeping regulation that requires all other local, state, and federal regulations. We do not still have VDOT approval on this, but they have submitted the site plan to go through the Development Review Committee process. VDOT's currently reviewing it, but VDOT felt comfortable with the conditions and the proffers that we have in place to take care and to help mitigate and require their approval. We'll do the normal process through the site plan process, which will require all the agencies and staff that are typically required for any type of site plan. So tonight, what's before you is the approval of these apartment buildings in the MUT&D district.
All right. I was wondering why it was coming back up. It was a little confusing, but now I understand. Board, do you have any questions for Mr. Bryant at this point? All right. I know that the owner of the property, as well as, I can't think of your last name. Mr. Warner.
Another Warner.
Yes.
I won't be as bright as they were. And that's why we're here, actually. I could have probably taken care of this when we went through the first time, but in our planning stages of getting the first site plans here with the first two apartment buildings, I sat down with Tyler and Jeremy, and we went through the ordinance to see, because as you can imagine, starting a master plan, getting it rezoned and all of that, when you have an ordinance and you have this big 180-acre master plan, you want to make sure all your i's are dotted and your t's are crossed. We just submitted the site plans. We've actually submitted two plans for these two apartment buildings and the clubhouse. On the apartment buildings, we've submitted a grading plan already to DEQ and to the county. We almost have that ready to go, waiting for DEQ approval. It's already been through one round. Then we submitted the site plan, and there is a little chart here as we went through, and you'll see it's kind of highlighted. But one column is neighborhood center, the other column is residential neighborhood. So the center is the blue, and the apartment complexes that you see on this master plan is the yellow. The yellow would be the residential neighborhood, and our apartments are in the residential neighborhood. And so if you flip the page and you don't do like I did, the special exception is what's needed in the yellow. So we probably could have taken care of that in the first rezoning if I had been smart enough to check that. But in order for Jeremy to approve this site plan, we have to get this special exception for these two buildings. And after we get VDOT approval for the big master plan, and we're still working on that study right now with the big master plan, but with the big master plan, we will come back again with a special exception request for the other 9 apartment buildings. But there are also some other tweaks that we're going to need through the ordinance. So we're going to be here again. As a big master plan and as a big job like this, you can imagine I'll be here a few more times as this project goes. But that's why we're back here in front of you.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Warner?
I'd like to add a condition that 29 business be labeled on all future.
Okay.
It's like,
All right. Yes, sir.
Oh, all right.
I'm going to write it on there.
If there's no questions, we'll go ahead and move to the public hearing. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing for special exception 2022-378. Is there anyone wishing to speak regarding this special exception? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And Board, what is?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve the request with conditions recommended by the Planning Commission.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. All right, we are going to go ahead and move on to the consent agenda, but we're going to pull out item A, the financial policy regarding Public Works revenue policy. I think Mr. Martin asked for this. We just want a better understanding of what exactly it entails and make sure we know what we're getting ourselves into. Yep.
Okay, boy, I hope I called the board members. In my memory, I believe I called and spoke with you all about this.
I didn't get a call on this one.
Okay. I'm sorry.
We had the meeting yesterday. I didn't get a call. Yeah.
That's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
we just want to
Okay, so
understand.
what this deals with is the Public Works employees are engaged in a variety of initiatives on their part that brings in revenue. Okay, so when there is code enforcement, they might work with the individual that has the code enforcement problem. They do mowing for the EDA. They pull scrap metal out of the landfill as they're dumping, as people dump into the landfill. They do earthworks for different nonprofits, and they generally do that at a lower cost than they might had. So the mowing at the EDA of, say, the Amelon Commerce Center costs the EDA less than if they were to contract it out. All of this work is done with existing resources and within existing time constraints, so that it does not cost the county any extra. The Public Works employees enjoy doing this because it gets them off the landfill and gets them off their regular routine of the places they have to care for. And so because this revenue comes in, we set it aside in a special account that has been set up for them. And we use that funding to pay for their uniforms and their steel-toed boots and various pieces of equipment for them. And this fund is available for them if we exhaust our existing budget lines for those expenses, then we will reach into this fund to pay for those regular county expenses. And then at the end of the year, rather than roll that extra revenue into the general fund, what we have proposed to do is take 25% of it, not to exceed $500 per employee for a specific group of employees that do that extra work. They're not required to do that extra work. They do it as an initiative on their part, and I propose that this is an incentive to keep them doing that in helping nonprofits, helping our own agencies, and helping us fund county expenses. And so that's how it's set up. Are there any questions? It has been suggested that, not every department is able to take advantage of this. And that is true. Not every department has the mowing equipment and has the resources to do this extra sort of thing. And so I don't want to disincentivize anyone, though, from doing anything extra. And I want to continue to incentivize this type of extra initiative. And this is a simple way to do that.
Yeah, I guess that was the main reason I wanted to pull it off, is because, they have the ability to do
They do.
this. And I think in the long run, it's probably saving the county public dollars, right?
Yes, sir.
And I get that. The only thing that gives me pause is our other departments that don't have the ability to raise extra funding for a bonus. I'm fine with the uniforms, everything else, it's just that piece gives me pause. I'm not saying it gives me enough pause to vote against it, but it gives me pause, and I'd like to hear from my other board members.
Well, I tend to agree with Mr. Martin. I have no problem with gloves, boots, things of that nature with doing that, but maybe, as we did just previously, the item of actually giving the bonus should be brought before the board at that given time and then authorized through this board. Also, what type, I don't know any of the figures. It says not to exceed $500. But I guess how much money are we talking about in this fund? If it says up to 25%, distribute amongst the employees, but the rest of that money, will that go back into the general fund?
Yes, sir.
Not all of it, no. Some of it runs through the solid waste fund, so not everything runs in the general fund anyway. It's probably, my estimate this time was probably about $10,000 left after We made the change probably 2 years ago to get rid of our uniform service and buy them better uniform stuff, like, that would last. So, you know, the Carhartt jackets that are better and warmer, and the good rain gear, and the good muck boots, and that kind of stuff, so they weren't slopping around in wet and that kind of stuff. So, all of that included, it doesn't always, we don't always have enough in the uniform line. And, so they use those funds to cover those things. And, there were some left this year, but, I don't know the exact amount. It can vary just depending on what they're lucky, or not lucky, but have the availability to do. I was talking with Mr. Lombardo today, and I think we've hit a snag with inmates right now, so he's down and having extra help. So that's going to hinder doing extra things. So that helps him a lot as far as being able to get the inmates out there. So, I don't know, I haven't pulled anything up because I don't have it, but
Yeah, that's fine. I was just wondering.
it's not like $100,000 or anything, it's just for the small things.
And that's why we put a cap on it too, in case it ever did get large. You know, it shouldn't be in an exorbitant amount. You know, I want to address the other departments. And this is what I've told people, and you may not agree with me, and there are some departments that don't agree with me, and that is, we're not all 7-foot-tall NBA stars. We can't all play the piano. And we don't all work with heavy equipment and work out in the sun and mow grass. But those who do and have the opportunity to earn extra money should be incentivized to do that. And those that have the opportunity to do extra things, if it brings in revenue, they should be incentivized to do that. And I'm simply trying to incentivize benefit to the county. And, you know, I'm sorry not everybody has that opportunity, but to deny somebody an opportunity because others don't have it is to disincentivize that extra effort. And I don't want to disincentivize it.
So, but are they working overtime to do this?
No.
Or so they're still getting paid their salary, they're working their 8 hours? Okay.
They're getting they're working in extra duty in their time. They're working faster on their work so they can do this extra work. That's not something I want to stop.
Mr. Chairman, I had a comment. The fact that we're paying for their gloves, their steel-toe shoes, their jackets, or whatever, I mean, they're working in an environment that a lot of people don't work in, especially when it's really hot, it's really rainy, it's really cold, and it's just nasty weather. I guarantee you most people don't want to work in. We live on a farm. I can tell you it's hard as a dickens to hire anybody that wants to do that. If we can incent them in some way that's actually saving this county money, and, you know, life ain't fair. It's not. It's just not. And if they can come up with this idea and it makes them feel good about their job and helps the county, where's the harm?
Well, again, the only thing that gives me pause is our other departments that don't have that ability. I agree with you, we should absolutely be providing them the best equipment to protect them from the elements. Our public safety people, we give them hopefully the best equipment that we can for them to go out all times of night and day. They don't have the ability to earn a bonus. The only issue or pause I'm having is the other departments that don't have this ability to go and collect scrap metal and so on and so forth. So, you know, I've heard you, Ms. Tucker, say that if we do it for one, we should do it for all. Many times you've said that. So that's the only reason I asked for this to be taken off the consent agenda for more discussion. So.
No, I agree. I think the discussion's good. And I do agree with you, Mr. Martin, but can't you play it the other way as well? The other departments are looking at this and they're saying, God, these guys came up with a really good idea, and this is how they're being rewarded for it. let us put our heads together and see what we can come up with. Maybe it's not cutting grass, but maybe it's something else that saves their department money that's creative that none of us ever thought of.
Fair enough.
Another factor that I found influential is that, you know, we're trying hard to get to a pay-for-performance system. And it's kind of hard to do that for, you know, the grounds folks and so forth that have to just keep working the same areas and the same buildings over and over again. And this seemed like a way to implement that mindset in that department. We're incentivizing good performance, which is what we want to try to do for everybody.
Well, I guess they're just doing their job, what's in their job description as well. You know, you kind of know what you're signing up for when you get into these positions. You know, I don't know, I kind of tend to,
Well, if I can, they're not paid to climb out of their machinery and grub through the landfill for scrap metal. That's not, their job is just to bury it and forget about it. But because they pull it out, they make a lot of money and collecting that metal as something extra that.
well, we do at the collection sites have metal containers where people put the metal, they're directed in those areas. And anyway, does anyone else have a comment on it? Would someone like to make a motion in regards to,
I would if I could find it.
I think it's I move the board adopt financial policy 3-14, public works unbudgeted revenue policy. Is that the one you want to make?
oh,
No, I'm having computer problems, Mr. Martin, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Ayers. I move that the board adopt the financial policy 3-14- public works unbudgeted revenue policy.
all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions in regard to the consent agenda?
No, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve as presented.
All right, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next we have Boards, Commission, Committee, Agriculture Committee interview. I know that I'd had a discussion with some of the other board members in regards to the interview. Ms. Tucker, if you would like to speak on that?
I would, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. If we could have the nominee for the board appointment to come up here, please. As he's walking up here, I just want to let the board members know that I talked to the chairman of the Ag Committee, talked to the members, talked to Mr. Bowen, who serves as secretary, talked to a number of people in this community, and I've also talked to the gentleman here before you. And I would like for him to explain what he does, who he is to you all, but I would like to also move that we dispense with an interview. This man has such a consensus of support that I think that just giving him an interview tonight would just be a waste of everybody's time.
All right.
So if you could just talk to us and tell us about who you are and why you want to do what you want to do.
How are y'all this evening?
Good.
I'm Tyler Price. I currently live in Madison Heights. I'm a forester out down in Riverville at Greif, and run a beef cattle operation with my dad back in Nelson County. I'm here to try to volunteer my time and services to help promote the future of agriculture and forestry within Amherst County and even beyond as much as I can throughout the region. So I'm honored to have this privilege to be able to help serve the county.
All right. We certainly do appreciate you coming here tonight. I know that we were going to do the interview, but like Ms. Tucker said, we've received great reviews from you. You're involved in the forestry industry with one of the largest employers in our county. You have a background in not dairy farming, but cattle farming. So, certainly I think we appreciate your time and glad you want to serve. So, are there any other?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Tyler Price to the Agriculture Committee.
Well, Ms. Tucker, did you make that motion?
I did not.
Okay.
I made a motion to dispense with the interview.
All right, that's right. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers And all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to you on
Thank
this.
you all. Appreciate it.
All right, next we are going to have a discussion on the Mill Creek Trail. I know this was brought up by Mr. Ayers. There's been a lot of discussion about this topic. It's been a very interesting time to sit on the board and listen to this as it has went around and around. We've gotten many calls about this. We've had many people in the community come up and speak about this. We did surveys. We did a plethora of things that has gotten us to this point. And with no further ado, I guess, if Mr. Ayers, would you like to discuss this a little bit?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you putting this on the agenda for a brief discussion. Over the last week, last several weeks, I think most of us have received some phone calls, emails, and messages of different types about, especially the folks that live in close proximity to the water and to the county's boundaries around that lake. Last week, I had the opportunity to go up and visit some properties and speak to some folks about Mill Creek Lake, and when this watershed project was put in some years ago, in which I recall it being done, but none of the details of which I was involved in, or do I remember or recall. But in speaking to some of the families and folks that, had to give up property for this watershed project in this particular lake to be put in, some of which, I know this Sandage family had to give up some of their prime property, their low grounds of their property, in which they had used for their livelihood, raising tobacco and crops for cash. And it impacted them greatly, and as well as it did other folks that own property around this now body of water. I walked several pieces of their property, looked at the survey markers that were in place, and I had to think for a few minutes. Obviously, most of you know what I've done for the last 30 years of my life, and we think about society today, and the society today is not what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and we go back. And to look at the close proximity that we would be opening up the general public to be in contact with these property owners that adjoin right around this lake with very minimal to no distance between them and the county boundaries would be, I feel, irresponsible on our part. We, as property owners, enjoy wherever we may live, being in our yard, on our porches, walking our boundaries, and not having to look at the general public coming through trails and right in our back door, down along beside our homes, across our backyards, whatever it may be. I'm not against the bike trails whatsoever. I'm, for the most part, when it comes to recreation in this county, very open-minded to things for the community. But when we think about and look at the news and everything that's going on around us, for us to be, I say, closed-minded about opening up a trail that's in such close proximity to many of the owners property owners that are around and adjoin the county's property, again, I can't see us doing that. We can take the parcel that is not in close proximity, and we can look at that and review that and consider expanding on that with trails or whatever. I'm not here to say what we're going to do with it, but it definitely would not impact the property owners in the way that it would those people that are in very close proximity to the county boundaries around that body of water. And I just can't see that being done, and I will not support that. And I know these people want a peace of mind, just as I would. And I feel that, tonight I'm willing to make the motion that we don't consider any of that property that's in close proximity to those private property owners around that body of water for a walking trail, bike trail, or anything, and we can remain open about the parcel of property the county owns that is not in close proximity to these property owners that are pretty much in contact with that body of water, and we would be subjecting the general public right to that property. And I'm willing to make that an emotion for us to put these folks at rest, and so they're not continually struggling as to what they will be having to deal with in the future.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, since this is in my district, I'd like to make a few comments, please.
yes, ma'am?
Thank you. It's no surprise to anyone that I have supported this bike trail. I support it immensely, just as I support recreation in all of our county. I listened to everything that Mr. Ware said. I listened to everything that the gentleman with the little boys here said, and he was a member of our EDA, and I respect the work and the commitment he has made to his county. Carter Massey was just in here. He has gotten up a group of kids and older people and has really made it his mission to get people outside and go do things. So I have been supportive. A month and a half ago, I've got know someone who lives on the lake. They invited me to come and see a new thing that they had built. I'd never been to their house. They said, Claudia, if you just come here and see what we see, you'll get it. I went down there, I sat on their veranda, I looked at the lake, and I did get it. I did get it. I understand why somebody who has land that adjoins that lake would not want to see people they don't know go across their property. I understand. However, there is a lot of that land that belongs to the county and should be enjoyed by all citizens and should have access to it. So I support what Mr. Ayers has said. I will support his motion, and I would also like to add that we put together a group of concerned citizens. Mr. Ware, I hope that you will be very involved, hope that you all will be involved, and look at what we can do that doesn't infringe upon the rights of others, but still opens up access to that lake for biking and walking.
All right, thank you, Ms. Tucker. Anyone else? If
I have a question for Mr. Ayers. You said you're willing to not go anywhere near close proximity, but, I mean, what is that? Just,
We can
I don't know,
make that
maybe
determination
hash that
now, whether it, as far as footage or, I reckon probably the best thing is if the remainder of that property is considered for a bike trail development or whatever it may be, whatever use it's designed for, is, once it's laid out, is we look and see, how, is it going to impact anyone? And if so, to what extent? The properties that I visited, I mean, Mr. Wade, it was basically be a sidewalk or a trail right around their property line, and that's very close proximity. So, whether we determine that here tonight, I'll leave that question up to the board, or we look, and as Ms. Tucker has suggested, look at the other property and what are we going to do? Are we going to continue with the thoughts of a trail, or what, and from that, look at that and decide how close are we going to come to that particular area that we own, the larger parcel of property? How close, what are we considering, and how close are we going to come to those property owners? I don't know what that answer is, but I know all of those folks that live right on the lake and right adjoining that property, I don't have any feeling to even consider that property at all. Only that the larger parcel that we possibly could put some amenities on, and then decide at that time how close are we going to come to the private property owners? I don't have that answer, Mr. Wade.
Thank you, sir.
And I would say, I've been opposed to this project. I haven't come out publicly and said it, but I've been opposed to it. And then once the information came back that the feasibility of it was in question, because parts of it actually were the lake was the boundary. There was no room to put a trail. And once I had seen that, and many of the other board members had seen that, we had contacted a couple of the people in that area to see if they'd be willing to, allow a trail across it. And I don't know if the answers came back, but I'm pretty sure they were no. And I completely agree with Mr. Ayers. Society has changed. It's in a very rural area. It's a rural setting. I don't know how you would even police that, given the fact that it's in such a rural area. And I think that we're doing the right thing here. We can look at the larger piece of property and see what we can do with it. The amenities of the lake, the fishing, what has been done up there has been a big boon for the county. It looks good. There's still problems, though. You have trash, you have people doing extracurricular. I don't know if parks can sometimes become a real problem for law enforcement, from drug use and littering and so forth. It's just a fact of the matter. Homeless encampments, things of that nature can sometimes happen on them.
We've got that on sidewalks in Madison Heights.
Well, we're trying to deal with that as well. And I actually brought that up at the last meeting to deal with that. I don't think it's good for us or anyone else in the community to have that. But I know, Mr. Ayers, I think if you could make your motion one more time so we can get it for the minutes.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Mr. Martin.
Well, so I support what you're saying, Mr. Ayers. I really do. I think with what Mr. Wade was saying, I think that, determining what close proximity means is important. Just looking at the map, I'm not sure we could get to any other county property if we don't define what close proximity is. It would have been helpful to have the survey here. I guess where I'm at, I've said it to Ms. Warner on the phone, I'll say it publicly. I am not in support of taking anyone's property by eminent domain for the trail. And if you remember, what I've told you is if anyone is interested in selling or granting an easement, I'd be interested in talking to them about it. But as far as taking anyone's property, I'm not interested in that. That being said, I brought up at our retreat yesterday that we should conduct master planning efforts for all of our parks and recreation in Amherst County. And I think that moving forward, I think how a trail could be designed to get to the county property that you're talking about, that could be a very important part of that. So while I support it, I don't want to be so tight that, is it 1 foot, is it 10 feet, is it 100 feet? I think that's important. So I'm not really sure how we get there. So I think is it sufficient to say we are only interested to try and access the land that the county does own from the parking area? Because is there any way you can bring it up on the screen?
The map?
Yeah.
Well, the map is not much help. It is,
Bring the survey up.
the map, okay. What we have is the original survey of the land for the lake, okay? And where the water ended up is not depicted accurately on the map. So when we, the survey was not a resurvey of the lines, it was a marking of the existing lines. So when you went out there and you saw the tags and the blue blazes, that marked the lines that already existed. And it is true, they range from 0 feet, the line is right at the water, to hundreds of feet. And it varies along the way. I've walked about a third of the lake in both directions from the park, and identified there are 3 places around the lake where the water is so close. For instance, there are trees right there. I mean, there'd be room for a trail, but there's a huge tree, and the roots reach to the water, and so you'd have to go around the left side of the tree. And one of those is on the Sandages property. I've communicated with 2 of those 3 property owners. One has declined an easement, or even to sell an easement, and the other one was Rodney Sandage, and he and I are setting up an appointment to go look at, he has the one with the tree, how we might get around that tree and whether he would allow that. So, if the board could, so we know where the lines are and where the water is, but looking at a map is not going to help at all. You have to be there on the ground. So if the board said, if we stay 1 foot off the property line, if we stay 10 foot off the property line, 50 feet off the property line, then we could identify where we need to go. For the most part, when we walked around, we're walking on deer trails, that follows the edge of the water.
50 feet?
And
100 feet?
I think what we're saying here, though, is the trail to go around that portion of the lake is off the table, is what I heard from Mr. Ayers, other than the piece of property, that you have adequate space to do that. Is that what you?
That is my,
All right,
That's my feeling as well.
let me bring up one thing. What if there were an adjoining property owner that was willing to give us a, I don't know if an easement is the right word, but was willing to give us access? So really was not going right along the lake, but through his land, and then would connect back onto our property. And they're voluntarily willing to do that. Is that something then that the board would entertain?
that's between the county and that landowner. I mean, that's, you know, I'm not, as far as us looking to put this trail through property that's encroaching right on private owners around that property, subjecting the general public to their, I'm not open to that. I would not want it, and I sure am not going to support it happening to someone else.
And I understand your intent, I just want to make sure that we don't make the.
But if there is a
the language so
landowner that's willing to
restrictive.
give an easement in their property that may adjoin this larger tract that the county has, then that's their willingness, and they have the right to do that. And, you know, the motion that I have here tonight would not forbid that from happening. That's between that individual and the county.
Can I ask a question of the board? Because at this point, we haven't brought the issue back to the board because of those properties that reach down to the water. We were exploring the cost of putting a boardwalk. And the county owns the water. The county owns the lake bed, and it's a question of how far up the shore we own. And we're just at the water. Is there any interest at all in a boardwalk along the water that we own?
I think you'd still have the same problem, you'd be right on the property line. I would like to put,
Okay.
you know,
Is that-
this to bed, I mean, at least on the trail around the lake, and focus on the area that's potentially usable. And so we can put this behind us and move forward and look at that area in the future. I'm done,
And I'm fine with that too. I just think that getting to the larger parcel that the county owns, the way we're speaking of it right now is going to be prohibitive. And if that's the way it is, that's the way it is.
Well, the largest parcel, Mr. Martin, is, the 100 acres or so at the end of Bearfield Road. That's the largest parcel.
But I
The
don't
bike
think
club
you-
has expressed an interest in running bike trails through that parcel, which is not on the water,
you gotta
and it's
go-
off of Bearfield,
it's on private property. And,
on county property.
It's on county.
yeah, but
Oh, I see.
you know, the bike trail around the lake, I think, is not a very good idea in general, because the degradation of the shoreline would be a terrible thing. You want to keep your shorelines intact, and to have a walking trail or a bike trail right along the edge of a lake is not a good environment. You're asking for problems. I don't think it is a good idea. We had discussed, you know, we weren't even going to get to that point of the property on that side of the lake.
As far as that 100-acre tract, if the bike club wants to, you know, look at that, or the county wants to look at that, that's 100 acres that they have the ability to get in that really wouldn't infringe upon the private property owners at all. 100 acres is a decent-sized piece of property to put
Okay,
trails through.
so I think I was looking at it differently. So you might have to access that offer. To actually get to it, you'd have to come from Bearfield.
Correct.
That's fine, okay, fair enough. So is that your motion?
I'm making a motion that we not look at putting a bike trail around Mill Creek Lake that would infringe on any of the private property owners that properties adjoin that body of water.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Ayers. All right, next, under new business, we have the Public Safety Director selection process.
So, Mr. Chair, we are advertising the position of the Public Safety Director. We are receiving applicants through Indeed. Our normal process is to cull through those applicants and select the ones that we want for interview. We've got some really good internal applicants and at least one really good external applicant. And so I know the board wants to express its direction on how to go through the process. Normally, my deputy, David Profit, Linda Warner, or Linda Felix, the HR director, and at least one or two other department heads would interview the selected candidates, but I think the board would, and of course, I've already invited any board member that wants to participate in the process. But is there anybody else that you would like involved that, in the process? I've been told to stop culling the Indeed applicants, so I don't know how many there are at the moment, but we would use this group also then to go through Indeed and select those for interview. How would you like me to proceed?
I guess that's what we're here for tonight, to try to discuss and see who, on this board, maybe we could have a couple of representatives to pick the position of the next public safety director, possibly some individuals in the local fire departments. I'm just throwing some ideas out here. People with a vested interest in the county. I know that Mr. Martin and Mr. Ayers have a lot more experience with, as one sits on the Emergency Services Council, and Mr. Martin is a fire chief. So I'd like to hear from the rest of the board. Mr. Wade?
I just have one recommendation, maybe include the sheriff in the interview process, since they're going to have to work hand in hand, so I think it'd be beneficial for Mr. Byer to join in with that as well.
So, I will say that, you know, with schools, public safety, trash is where we spend a lot of our county resources. I think Ms. Tucker put it very eloquently in that this is a very high-profile position that touches a lot of lives. At least I think you said that at one point. But, you know, with that, my thought, I do agree someone from the sheriff's office should be on this committee. I also had reached out. First, I will say I'm not interested in being on it, okay? I did reach out to Mr. Brad Creasy, who is Director of Virginia Department Fire Programs. He would be willing to serve on that. I think that brings a good resource. I think someone from the volunteer fire departments. I think someone from the volunteer rescue squads, because we have a lot of work to do with them, and bringing them in would be good. I also think a line EMT or paramedic would be a good fit, and someone from dispatch, having their input. I would also suggest that any applicants that you have already culled be given to whichever committee ends up being appointed to look at this. And Mr. Ayers, I think you would be a good fit, being the liaison to the Emergency Services Council.
And Mr. Martin, the only thing I would say is that, you know how committee work goes. If we get this thing too cumbersome, it's going to be very difficult for it to be workable.
True.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, well,
Board, I'd like to see a citizen from the county that has some background, and I think all of us know Chris Adams. Chris recently retired from the city and is a paramedic and has been for some time. He's been a flight medic, and he's done a lot, as well as been a former volunteer with Peddler. I would like to see Chris be a part of that if he's willing to serve. I have not spoken to him, but, you know, that's an individual as far as a citizen in this county that has served and did professionally and has done as a volunteer. I would like to see Chris be part of that committee.
I think that would be a great choice for a citizen. He's got an accomplished career in the EMT world. He's just recently retired, so hopefully he's got a little bit of time to do that. I think he would be a good choice. I know that your name was brought up, Mr. Ayers. I don't know how you feel about that, whether you...
I'm fine with it.
All right, I think those two I can agree on. I think a representative for the sheriff's office would be, that would be 3 people right there. I don't know how many more we would want as far as other representatives.
I think you've got to have the business community represented. And I would ask that you go to the chamber and the EDA and ask them to give you a name.
I'd like to keep it, I don't know, I'd like to keep it around 4 people. I
That's
think that would
4.
be a good number.
That's 4, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't,
I
don't
don't
know.
think you can leave your volunteer fire departments out of it. So
You don't think what?
you can leave your volunteer fire departments out of the selection process, so
yeah,
I would put Jeff Tanner on it. He also brings a Sentra.
yeah.
Jeff still volunteer.
Yes,
You know,
He's on MSI for the county or fireside.
he's on the fire side. He's actually the Amherst second assistant chief.
I've heard somebody on volunteer MSI.
I was going to recommend Charlie Gooden.
She's a fine lady and put a lot of time in.
so,
I
you know,
got one question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Is Mr. Bryant involved in the interview process at all? I mean, shouldn't he? Is he available?
I'm available.
I would think you'd want him to weigh in as well.
I think we're getting a little large here. I don't know. I think that we've got, I don't know if the EDA, I understand, or in the Chamber of Commerce completely, you know, but I don't know how much expertise they would have in a public safety director. And it's no slight, I mean, I think it's a good idea, but I don't know how much expertise they would have in that.
Well, Greif has a fire department, and they have a safety director. They had a fire down there. If they have a fire, it's gonna be one of the biggest ones in this county.
Well, I also think that what has been done for other positions in other localities is once you decide that maybe you want to choose someone, you do a meet and greet where you take them out to, you can take them out to meet the EDA board or the public and, you know, that kind of thing. So I understand your concerns about having too much input, but I think some good deliberation on it would be very valuable. So I'm in agreement with the names that you threw out, Mr. Ayers.
All right, so we have Jeff Tanner, Chris Adams,
Charlie Gooden,
Charlie Gooden, and Jimmy Ayers.
Jimmy Ayers. How about the sheriff's
Sheriff's
department? Someone from the
A
sheriff's
representative
department?
from the Sheriff's
That
Department.
would make 5, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
And they're working with the county administrator regarding the applications and getting the information to the selection committee.
Is that?
All right?
And I'd like for them to see all applications.
Would you like me to play a role?
I think he said county administrator.
All right. Anybody want to put, I'll put a motion on the floor. I mean, we got to ask these individuals, right?
Sure.
All right, so I would ask that the county administrator, before I guess we appoint them, we need to ask for their, we would like you to ask these individuals, Jeff Tanner, Chris Adams, of course, Mr. Ayers is already going to serve, Charlie Gooden, a representative from the, and a representative from the Sheriff's Department to serve on this committee. That's 5. And I guess you could get the information,
I'll have to get them into Indeed so they can see that information.
well, and then the
Get them an
contact, how to
account.
contact them.
Well, we'll track them down
All right,
and
then we-
invite them to participate. I'll figure out a way to get them to see the applications in Indeed. Maybe they can be put in the county's account.
and then set
I
up-
know that there's 6 people. Do you want this group to make the selection? Do you want me to make the selection with their recommendation and approval? What authority does this group have?
I would say that that group has the authority to cull the applications and to make a recommendation on whom we should hire.
And will I be hiring this person, or will the board want to interview the person and extend offers?
The board, the group that we've put through here will be making the determination as to who they were going to make a
Offer to.
determination as who is going to be selected, and then the offer will be made by the county.
Correct.
I assume that, you know, the best candidate will rise to the top and everyone will agree, but you've got a selection committee of 6. if they split between two candidates, who has the controlling vote, and how will that be determined?
Board, the one thing that we need to keep in mind, and I say this coming from a, kind of a corporate background, is that we gotta remember that this individual is gonna work for the county administrator. Whether it's Mr. Rogers while he's here, or whoever succeeds him when he retires. They're gonna be working for the county administrator.
They're also appointed by the board.
Huh?
They're appointed by the board. They may work for the county administrator just as
Right.
every other.
So, exactly, and so just gotta make sure that there is some input there,
Yeah.
rather than just handing the county administrator an individual who says, here, make this work.
I think with the group of individuals that'll be on that board, they'll be working closely with them, several of them will. I don't think that will be a problem. If you're a professional, you're able to work with whoever it may be.
No, no.
I think that's how
not
you work.
true.
You have to work with
No.
people, whether or not you get along with them or not. I mean, that's part of the business. Well, we've set this, what do you think about the 6, did we get 5 board members?
No, what?
voting? I'm just trying to think this out. You're talking about 6, all 6 have voting rights on the board for the selection process.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And so if it's a 3-3 tie,
Figure it out.
Ty loses.
all right. Do we need a motion?
Yeah, this needs to be memorialized somehow.
All right. I move that a selection committee be established to process the applicants for the Director of Public Safety. The committee will consist of, upon their acceptance, Jeff Tanner, Chris Adams, Jimmy Ayers, Charlie, is it Gooden?
Yeah.
And a representative from the Sheriff's Office, as well as Mr. Rogers, or the County Administrator, let's just say County Administrator. The committee will call the applicants, select candidates for interviews, and select the new Public Safety Director. There's a motion on the floor. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. All right. Next, we have the installation of George Benton Memorial Plaque. Mr. Brian Thacker, are you here tonight?
Greetings. So the Parks and Rec Director, Jerry West of Nelson County, has asked Amherst County to install a plaque for this gentleman who was part of the Zoning Board of Appeals for many years and a Nelson County and Amherst County resident. He was also an avid bicyclist on the trail. Nelson County and a select group of individuals have made a bronze plaque and want to install it next to the Ty River Bridge on the Amherst side, which for whatever reason piques this group, and that's where they would like it. Nelson County will pay for the sign, install the sign, maintain the sign, with the understanding that Amherst County to cut the grass around it in perpetuity.
All right. Board, is there any discussion? Well, anyway, and if there's no discussion, I don't see any problem with this. I do not know Mr. Benton, but it's right on the border, and evidently, it's a worthwhile cause. They're installing it at no cost to us. So we'll go ahead. I move that the board approve the installation of the plaque honoring George Benton on the Virginia Blue Ridge Railway Trail. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Please thank our friends from Nelson County.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next, I've seen him in the audience waiting for his time, his newly appointed, Mr. William Wells, Dr. Wells, welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, members of the board, come to you tonight, one, just say thank you for the support of the year when school starts tomorrow, so watch out for those buses riding around, picking our kids up tomorrow. We're starting up, ready to go tomorrow. But the purpose of being here tonight is we're trying to move to a self-funded insurance program. We feel that'd be the best move for our staff to control costs, especially, when you do the yearly renews, and y'all are aware of that as you do that with county employees and look at the insurance costs. So what we're asking to do is take any rollover funds from this year and place it into a contingency fund to help cover any, if we have a, per se, a bad year in the future, we'd have that funds there to help cover that. The general cost, though, will be covered by our contribution, our employee contribution into this fund. But if we did have a year that exceeded that, we'd need to have some contingency funds there to help cover the cost. So we're asking for this year particularly that we take any rollover funds and put that into that insurance account. And then again, if we move forward, we would come to you with rollover funds. Hopefully we won't ever need to use it. But if we did have to come forward in the future, we could take any of the rollover funds as opposed to being into capital in our CIP to maybe take a portion of that and place it into that if need be. But my understanding of the agreement when it was first started for the rollover funds was that you allowed us to take those funds, put into a CIP, and for us to use it for any other purpose, we need your approval. So that's why I come to you tonight to ask you to take rollover funds from this year and place it into, before you can place it into that insurance fund.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. I guess when you look at this, it's going to create a savings in your insurance lines? Is that?
We anticipate a savings for that, also a savings for our employees, and then moving forward, we won't be battling the 25-30% possible increases in insurance costs for our employees every year. We can be more negotiable. We have better chance, better opportunity to get that rate at a better rate for us. It does not affect the employees at all. It just mainly their insurance will not change, but it does affect the backside of how we manage the accounts. And we have a specialist here, Mr. Matt Smith. He can talk to you more about the fine details if you have any questions regarding that.
Dr. Wells, how many other counties are going the self-funded route?
I know there's some in the area. I'd have to.
Virtually all the ones I know are, there are some exceptions that fall with the local choice. That is also a self-funded program, but it operates more like a fully insured program. I think the last statistic I saw, this is nationwide, I think 80% of groups 500 and above are self-funded. All the schools and counties that I deal with in Virginia are self-funded.
Yeah, it's difficult to hear you, so.
Yeah, could you come up here and for the audience that may be on YouTube?
Yeah, my question is, roughly a percentage of Virginia counties that are doing it, and are any in our area?
Yeah, so I can't give you a percentage in Virginia. I could find out for you. I can tell you I do work for Campbell County, Lynchburg City Schools. All those groups are self-funded.
That's all I need. Okay, thank you.
I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
So this money you want to move over to the reserve, that's not coming from the money that's been allocated for the school expansion, correct?
No, it's just rollover money. We have rollover money that would normally go into the CIP, but instead of placing it into our CIP for next year, we would place it into this fund.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I guess my question would be, how does that affect your CIP going forward? I know there was a decision made. We're doing a lot of work at the school. I know we're doing a lot of renovation. I guess that's covering some of the cost at the high school, but you still have your infrastructure you need to maintain and upkeep.
So most of the annual stuff is in our budget. The regular upkeep's in our annual budget, but then we are receiving roughly $2 million in state funds this year for construction that we have to spend in the next 2 years. And we're going to put that money towards some of the projects that may have been covered with our current, so this money may have been our CIP. So we feel this is the right time to do it. We have the extra income coming from the state that we can, use to cover some of our costs. But then also, a lot of the projects on our CIP were at the high school, and a lot of those projects are being absorbed as we do some of this renovation at the high school. So we're actually meeting in September to revamp our CIP and kind of study that a little deeper. But we do feel that this is the best time. If we're going to do it, this is the time to do it with the money coming from the state this year. And that would kind of offset some of those costs.
So, Dr. Wells, you may have mentioned this, but is this a one-time allocation, or is this recurring year after year?
No, we anticipate it being a one-time allocation. Okay. However, if we do get to a point where the funds had to be reduced, we would come to you and say we'd like to put 100,000 of that money into this versus all going to the CIP. But we anticipate this being a one-time.
Okay.
All right, are there any more questions for Dr. Wells? All right,
I'll move that the board authorize the creation of a health insurance reserve for the schools, that all their fiscal year 21, 22 fiscal year end funds be allocated to that reserve, and henceforth the schools be granted the authority to allocate year-end funds between its capital improvement projects fund and its health insurance reserve.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Wade. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And Dr. Wells, I just want to wish you the best of luck this year as you go forward, as well as the school system. I've known you for a long time, and I know you'll do a good job. I've appreciated everything you did for me when I was younger, being my football coach and all this stuff that, you're always there, and I appreciate everything you've done, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for your support, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Why does he look younger than you?
He must he dyes his hair sometime. All right. Next, we have Ms. Stacy McBride, the USDA Secure Rural School and Community Self-Determination Act.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how this was handled in the past. I've not seen this before. I don't know. I'm not sure if this is a new election, but in the past, and this year too, the schools are anticipating this funding for their Title I positions that are not funded by the state. This is money that comes from the national forests. And in lieu of taxes, we get a very large chunk for the county. I think this year's was close to $170,000. But they need you all as the board to elect to either have this money go to the public schools and roads, but we don't have to pay for roads, so it would just be for the public schools. Special projects on the federal land, and it would only be 20% of it that would go there, but you would reduce the amount that comes to your schools. If you don't, and the last one is county-specific purposes, and it's really complicated. In the past, they have always used it for Title I, all of it.
Which is the schools.
Which is the schools. It's the reading program. It's what you need for our kids that are struggling. This year, it's about a little less than $75,000, so it probably funds 1 to 1.5 positions would be my guess after benefits. I just need a motion as to what you all want to do, or if you have any questions.
Any questions, board? I think the money has usually been allocated to the school system, and I don't see why it should change at this point in time. So with that being said, I move that the board elect Title I for the FY22 SRS payments to be received in FY23. Are there any further discussions? If not, motion on the floor, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? County Attorney report.
I have nothing, sir.
All right, appreciate it. Next, we have liaison and committee reports. I know there's several of them on the agenda. If there's anything of note that you would like to speak of, you're more than welcome to speak. If not, we can move on. Ms. Tucker, is there anything you would like?
Well, we took care of a big piece of business today by nominating the person to the Ag Committee. The Ag and the Fair Committee is moving along nicely. Of course, the date's set, most of the contracts are let. There was a question at our last Ag Committee meeting, and I don't know if it was answered. The question was, can the Ag Committee enter into a multiple-year agreement with a fair vendor? Did they reach out to you?
No, ma'am. They just reached out to me about a closed meeting item.
Do you know the answer to that, Mr. Rogers?
They came and asked about that. I sent them back to the drawing board to talk whether the vendor was even interested in that. And I don't know whether it's a real thing or not yet.
Yes, it is a real thing. They could get a cheaper rate if they did a multiple year.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then I think the board should probably authorize them, because as just a committee, they don't have the authority to spend any
Right.
money. And they'd be committing future boards. And of course, any board can negate that, but at that point, the money's obligated, it's under contract, we'd have to deal with the lawsuit. I would think that you all would need to authorize them to do that.
I think Ms. Wilkes has a
Well, wouldn't we,
had something she wanted to say.
yeah, but do we not know on a yearly basis where it may or may not be? Is that correct with?
No, this is a vendor.
This is
I
a
think
vendor, and
was
this is procurement, and they've done everything they need to do for procurement. They just have asked to do it. It's no different than what we do for like the auditors or as a service or, I'm trying to think, I did it for our actuary. We've entered into multi-year contracts before.
And this one, I think, was a generator, David, the generator guy.
I think it's actually your discount portable toilet.
Oh, I
Like
see.
your porta potties.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not unusual to enter into contracts like that, and as long as the board who has authorized the ag committee gives that authorization, we're good to go.
Okay.
Because they've already been appropriated the funding.
Yeah, so what
This is a
happens is, every year, these particular contracts grow exponentially sometimes, and if we can lock them in now, we can keep the fair budget down. I encourage them to look into this for some of these things that they're having to go out and bid out every year when it changes so much, if they could get a better deal that way.
Yeah, the issue that I asked them to explore was, well, what if we have to cancel because of a hurricane? All right, how are you going to handle that? Is it just a 3-year term regardless of whether we use them or not? Or is it 3 consecutive fairs?
Well, you'd write that into the
If we
contract.
cancel for a hurricane, then it just moves past a year and continues on. And they should sort that out before we commit. But the question as to whether they can go
Can they do
beyond
it?
the current fiscal year is one for the board.
I don't know if it's a legal question or a policy question. I suspect it's a policy question.
I would agree with you, and actually, I'm going to bring something up later in the board comments that's kind of in the same lines. So, yeah. I mean, I don't see where the county's going to back off from having a fair. I would hope we would continue to have it on an annual basis, so, you know, if that means issuing a 3-year contract for portable toilets or generators or whatever.
We do it for our cleaning service here and all the stuff that we purchase for that. Mark, I don't see how that's any different under procurement rules.
No, there is no difference. I mean, we can.
You just have to write the contract to do
The contract has
that.
to be written in such way.
Yeah, you never know what might disrupt a fair. I mean, we've had them disrupted because of COVID, so it could be disrupted again.
Sure, but I think, as Ms., I'm sorry.
Yeah, the question before us is, can the ag committee do this? Not is it, can we do it? Do we need to authorize the ag committee? How do we get to the yes? That's my question.
Well,
I think it's I think it's probably, this board would make that determination, and then ultimately,
I think, well, since it is a procurement question, when they issued the RFP or bid proposals or whatever, did they say they were looking for multi-year?
So I don't think they had to issue a
They just got
formal
quotes.
one, because they came under our small purchase
Okay.
quote. But it's more than the 3,500, but it's fallen into the less than, I think, 20,000
I got
per year, so.
you. Okay, so,
So typically, I sign all of their contracts. I obligate all the fair things because they don't have the authority to do that. So they bring that to me, I'll sign it, approve it, and it's done. Can I have the board's permission to do that?
I'm good with it. Board members?
I'd be
I mean, it
committing to
saves money,
counting
that's why I'm good with
3
it.
years or 3 fairs. I'll have to sort that out.
yeah, I mean, if you could do 3 fairs versus 3 years, that'd be great.
Yeah, I just don't want to have to pay them if we don't have a fair.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Right.
And that was a
Neither.
concern of the ag committee.
Well, I would think, that probably is easy to put in the contract, and the vendor that I know we're talking about would probably see it as, I'm not expending any of my resources if you cancel the fair, so I don't think that would be a hard
All
sell
right,
for
is there
them.
anyone opposed to me signing this agreement subject to not paying for services we don't receive? Then I'll proceed. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Martin, do you have anything?
Just very quickly, Numbers are up for fall soccer, night fishing, Coolwell Recreation Center is being used. It's pretty much booked up. Parks and Rec Board will be participating in the county fair. And I guess the big thing coming up is the Halloween Spooktacular at Coolwell Recreation Center. It will either be October 28th or 29th. It's always enjoyed by our county children.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin, appreciate it. All right, the next is just information on the Regional Business Alliance. If there's any questions, please speak up. If not, we'll go on to citizen comments. Anyone wishing to speak in the audience, please come forward.
So it's Tim Ware, 405 Cherry Hill Road, and I appreciate all the discussion y'all had tonight about the trail system at Mill Creek. I'm a little disappointed in some things. I was never one for taking someone's land. I'm a little disappointed in the way the recreational trails and how dangerous Amherst County is with having people walk, on a trail that's, we live in such a bad place and a bad time. We go to New London out in Bedford every Thursday night. I've never picked up one piece of trash. So people ride the trails, take care of the trails. People hike responsible. Now, people drive down to Mill Creek and have a couple beers and throw their trash out in the parking lot when they get through. That's what you're seeing. If you ever take a hike on a trail and go any distance, you won't see any trash. People are very responsible. I mean, has there ever been any crimes committed on the trail in Piney River? It goes through people's backyard, people's land. I can drive a boat up to your land and get off the boat and do what I want to. I mean, trespassing, but in essence, you still can do that. And, the fact that I have a public road in front of my house, I didn't like that. I mean, I know all y'all, and I get it, and y'all have seen some horrible things and been around some bad stuff, but I just didn't like that part of the hikers and the trail riders being that. I've never seen personally any instance. And I know this board was real close to, the county's real close to voting in, some gambling. And, you want to see crime go up, let that pass. And, compared to a trail, I think the impact was very light. But I honor what happened tonight, and I understand, like I said, I was not for taking people's land either. I wish there was some happy medium between landowners and the county to allow access. There's lots of trails where there's swing gates where people own farm, and the gravity gates are 3-foot wide cattle crossings and everything else. But it may be, maybe not in this county, but I thank y'all for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ware. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Pat Melko, 2032 Turkey Mountain Trail, and I have supported the bike club, and I totally agree with Tim that Amherst County needs recreational opportunities. I am just not for condemning people's property. And if there is a way to get to this other parcel that, and it's a large area, I would be very supportive. I would even work toward making that happen. I just think the way the land is around the lake, that is not conducive, because you have a square parcel and you have water that have filled in, and it's just in and out all over the place. But if there really is 100 acres that could be developed with recreational opportunities that doesn't trespass on people's properties, I would be totally for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close citizen comments. Move on to matters from members of the board. Mr. Wade?
None, sir.
Ms. Tucker?
I don't have anything.
Mr. Ayers?
No, sir.
Mr. Martin?
So sure, I was approached by my Nelson Fire Department. We talked a little bit yesterday about their new engine, and I would like to request that they work with the Emergency Services Council to try and see if there's any way, and with Mr. Profit, to see if there's any way in locking a price in on that new engine earlier than later. Not sure if it is, but I told them I would ask, and I think the Emergency Services Council is the place to start.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin. The only question I got is, I know a couple weeks ago or months ago, I can't remember, there was talk of a cooling center that was going to be located on the NAACP had brought a letter forth from us, and I got a call from someone wondering where that would be located. I think the COVID funds were going to cover it, or ARPA, whatever you have. If you could get any information back.
Was that like or a splash park? Is that what she was referring to?
I'm not for sure, but I do remember us talking about that.
Oh, she's talking about the one at the library that we were.
I don't know if it was at the library or what the location, but if someone...
Rivers Edge Park.
Rivers Edge Park is what I thought it was.
Yeah. I can tell you, I mean, it's just an idea, but the 13 acres on the Patel property, we've identified a spot for something to do with water. But we can...
Just look at that and let me know. I thought we had discussed that and it was something...
I'll call Gloria.
All right.
And find out exactly what she was
All
looking
right.
at.
I just received a call from a gentleman today and I told him I'd ask. It's not pressing, but just thought I would see what's going on with that, so.
Okay, I'll find out and bring it back to you.
I have one more, Mr. Chair, please.
Yes.
So I think all of us, well, most of us are aware of the issues that Mr. Hall is having with the horses getting out onto his property. I'm very encouraged that our Sheriff's Department has been working very hard to try and take care of that. I would just ask you, Mr. Rogers, to stay in touch with Sheriff Fire to make sure that we're being diligent about dealing with that issue, please.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else? If not, I make a motion, we go into closed session pursuant to section 2.2-3711, A1 of the Code of Virginia 1950, as amended to evaluate the performance of the county administrator, and B, a closed session pursuant to Virginia Code section 2.2-3711, subsection A3, for the purpose of discussion related to consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose, or of the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically related to the acquisition of property located in District 5. Motion on the floor, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.